Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Fallout Roundtable. This is a place where diverse individuals discuss various topics from the Fallout universe. Join us, the conversation has already started.
Welcome, everybody, to the Fallout Roundtable, or like another episode of the Fallout Roundtable. I am your boat captain for whenever you're listening to this show, Maverick Stone, and today we got the full crew on today, which is a surprise to everybody here. We got Gingerino, we got Romer, we got Sassy Lady, we got Jaxus. Everybody say hello.
He actually remembered me.
Hello. I know. I was just thinking that. He remembered you tonight.
It's a
But
special
before we
night.
But
Yes, it is.
before we introduce our guest of tonight, let me remind you to please rate, review, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can see weird things that while we're talking. You can look us up at the Fallout Roundtable or just Fallout Roundtable. How you know it's us? It's the same logo that's on our Spotify. If you have a Twitter account, how about you give us a follow at FalloutRTB? Or how about you just send us an email at falloutrtb@gmail.com. Woo!
Yeah,
Now
boy.
for the guest of the evening. He is a member. He is. God damn! I'm sorry. It's the guy that created the Modus Files.
You know when the
It's
plane's
Lawrence.
bouncing and you're like, is it gonna stick the landing? And then the wheel
No.
gives out and it just
It's like,
knows. Yeah,
It
Never
happens
good.
at least
You're doing
once.
good. You're doing good.
Everyone.
Yeah.
Say hello, Lawrence.
See if we can put him in
Recording?
YouTube stuff.
No, very glad to be here. Thank you very much for having me on tonight. Appreciate it.
Yes, welcome to our train wreck.
Yes, welcome to our train wreck. He is our very first guest. He was our very first guest when we started.
Yes, he
Way
was.
back when.
Way
See
back.
how
Choo-choo.
50 episodes
nothing
ago.
much has changed. Not much has changed.
It's like feels like I never left.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just like the last time I was here.
Love it.
Except my intros are better now compared to
That's
back
true.
then.
He has done a lot better, and we're super happy to have you on. This is exciting.
Thank you. Very glad to be
Well-
here.
Yeah, let me just move it. Let me just pass the mic on to our host of the evening, Sassy Lady. Go ahead.
Oh, it's me?
Yeah, you're the one that came up with this topic. Or
I guess I
someone-
did. And incidentally, I came up with this topic after listening to one of Lawrence's productions of his Enclave Files. It was towards the end of season
Modus
2.
Files, say it right.
Oh, sorry, the Modus Files. I knew that was wrong. I said it and I was like, that doesn't seem right, but okay. I think it was the season 2 ender. There was, I don't want to I don't know. Has everybody listened to it by now? I should hope so.
No, I need to catch up. I'm sorry. That's really bad of me.
With the exception
Because
of
I love the show. I love the show.
Plug
but I
your
need to
ears,
catch up
Maverick.
on
You
it.
can't listen now.
Right. Cover your ears. There might be spoilers. It'll be accidental. But it just made me think about here you are, you staging this big battle between these super duper mutants, I guess, versus the Enclave
Super
and their
duper.
buddy pal Graham, and everybody's like, holy cow, we're with him, like, how can this be? And they're kind of scared of him, and then you've got other people who are like, it's cool, he's with us. So that kind of got me thinking about figures like Graham or some of the others from the other games, and how is it that like Fox and brain just died, some of the other ones, Virgil, that was the other one I was trying to think of, how did they manage to retain their humanity and still be able to not only talk to people but want to help people or work with people versus the way we know super mutants, right? That was
yeah,
my loose idea.
No. It's actually a great topic, and FEV, which is the forced evolutionary virus, which causes super mutants, along with in Fallout 76, it's actually responsible for a number of the cryptids that we find in the game, like Snallygaster, Grafton Monster, potentially even the Wendigo, though there's some discussion there about whether or not that's what kind of cryptid that actually is.
Like, yeah.
But FEV is actually at the heart of a lot of the Fallout games. In fact, the Master, who is the evil villain in Fallout, the original game, was using the forced evolutionary virus to try to turn all humans into super mutants, and that's like his master plan to take over the world. And so so if we kind of look at FEV, it goes back to before the war. It actually started when the Chinese started using biological weapons in the war against the United States, and that's actually where the new plague came from. So the government put out a contract for Westech to try to develop they called it the pan immunity virus, which was a way to try to make it so that the U.S. citizenry would not get infected by the plague. And then, of course, they realized that it had other applications once they figured out that it was something that they could actually force mutations. So it's turned into actually two separate parts of the program. And we learned about this in all of the various games, that there was actually two branches of FEV research. There was one, which was the super soldier research, which created super mutants. And at Westech, originally in Appalachia, they were looking at it to try to make crops grow faster and larger because it was a food crisis in the United States. And so they were going to use that to basically make, like 10-foot long cucumbers or whatever. I don't know. But when you look at it in the game, though, they abandoned that research because ultimately they were pouring all of their money into military research. So that's really at the end of the day where FEV came from. It was a military project designed to create super soldiers, and then they got super mutants. Beyond that, so it was being researched in a couple of different places. Sorry, I'm bouncing around a little bit,
Okay.
But I'm also a lore nut, so
It's great.
I kind of do that.
Clearly.
So on the West Coast, Westech was actually using the Mariposa facility to do most of their research, and that's where you had some of the most advanced strains of FEV. So actually taking that branch was one of the reasons why the super mutants in Fallout and Fallout 2 were actually much smarter. You actually had more super mutants that retained a higher level of intelligence. They were not all just kind of frenzied opponents. They could talk to you. They interacted with you. They could actually plan. The Nightkin were actually some of the first super mutants that the Master created. On the East Coast, again, it was in Appalachia. It was in Westech there. The strain they were using was, I would say, a lot more unstable. And the super mutants that they created out of the citizenry of Huntersville, for instance, they look like super mutants, they act like super mutants, but they had probably half the intelligence. So was that the strain? Was it the people they were infecting? I like to think that it was probably the strain because they were working with so many different varieties. But like any virus, it mutates. And one of the reasons I think that we find characters within the Fallout universe, these super mutants that actually retain a much larger part of their humanity, like Graham, for instance, or
what about
Gale.
like Foxy on the East Coast though? Because he was part of that other strain, right?
But he's later, right?
He is later, and he actually came from Vault 87. And the research that they were doing with FEV there was different. So I would say that there was probably a dozen different strains that Westech was working with. Okay. And each of them were, and the way that, and again, sorry, I'm going to go a little bit into the weeds here, but the way the forced evolutionary virus worked is that it actually would attach to your DNA. And depending upon what areas of the DNA that it attached to, it would cause different effects. So when they were researching it, they were literally trying to make, like I said, super soldiers. So they wanted, the high muscle mass. They actually wanted high intelligence because you wanted a soldier that could actually think, which ironically enough is one of the reasons why I actually kind of talk about this I included it in the podcast. And in the game too, in Fallout 76, you do find these smarter super mutants that actually Dr. Blackburn created. But yeah, so that's actually where that came from. Interestingly enough as well, the Institute in Fallout 4 was experimenting with FEV, except they were doing it for a completely different reason. They didn't want super mutants. They actually used FEV to create the synths. So Gen 3 synths, that skin and everything that they had came from FEV.
Yeah, and I mean, you had all these different people using different strains of FEV, but I think any type of research is going to, like, if you don't get the results you want, you're going to tweak the formula, right? And you're going to keep tweaking it seeing what worked and what didn't to try and enhance the positives and negate the negatives. So we probably had a lot of that going on too.
Yeah,
Just
absolutely.
the
Yeah.
formula being different than formula being messed with and diluted and changed and whatever along the time.
Well, and it also depended on how long you were exposed to it, because different strains required a different level of exposure. So, for instance, in Vault 87 and actually at Mariposa, they actually had to dip the subject directly into a vat of FEV, and they would be left there for days, absorbing it into their skin. So FEV is not an airborne virus. You can't catch it from someone. It actually has to be administered to the body. And that was a question that I had for a long time, which is like, why aren't people catching FEV? And it's like, well, no, that's not the way it's designed. It's supposed to go in these, it's supposed to be through direct interactions, which was good. I mean, obviously, an airborne version of FEV would not be great for anybody.
It would also mutate more, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
So, is there a specific amount of FEV that you need to be exposed to actually have a change happen to you?
So from what I've seen, it's actually a pretty significant amount. So you would actually need probably, I would assume, multiple gallons of it to really see the major effects. I'm not sure how much so the folks in Huntersville, so in Fallout 76, the folks in Huntersville were exposed. They were exposed to the drinking water. So it was, they were drinking it. So I would imagine that they probably were drinking, let's just say they drink 8 glasses of water a day, couple of gallons, and I think it took actually several weeks for them to become fully infected. So yeah, I mean, I think that's probably a safe bet that you're probably, that's what would be necessary. Some of the other strains would actually require you to be, like I said, submerged in that vat for a significant period of time.
How much did Lilith have?
Well, so that's all right. So I don't know if you guys want me to tell the Lilith story.
DNA, right? So
yeah. So, well, I mean, if you're all right, so well, the other thing about actually, let me tell the Lilith story first. Yeah. So, as I was kind of looking at FEV as part of what I wanted to include in the podcast, it made sense that there were going to be like these mad scientists in the Fallout universe, and Lilith's father, Dr. Alistair, was actually Lucius Alistair was one of these researchers. And he had his own version of what FEV was going to do. He didn't want something that looked like a super mutant. He actually wanted to create like a real, like somebody that would look like us, but have all of the internal components of like what a super mutant would be. So they would have higher muscle mass. They'd be incredibly intelligent. But again, you don't get the negatives of that. So he tweaked that for a while. When he got into Vault 76, he had one strain with him, and it was the most advanced strain that he had come up with. And he had tweaked it and tweaked it and tweaked it, but he needed somebody to experiment on. Well, he didn't have any kids. So he was like, well, you know what? I'm going to have a kid. So he got his wife pregnant. When that child was born, she was not really his child. She was his guinea pig.
Right.
So when she was 6 months old, he injects her with his version of FEV, because he felt that one of the problems that they had was that they were actually experimenting on adults, and that was why they were not able to get the results they wanted. So he was like, well, no, if I inject a child, it's probably going to work. And so her DNA was changed at that fundamental level. It did exactly what he wanted it to do. She was stronger, faster, smarter. The one side effect that he wasn't aware of, that he couldn't get rid of, was the fact that she was completely psychotic and also a cannibal. And so that was the driving force behind Lilith. So she grows up in the vault, finds out that she's an experiment, takes action against her father, and then when Reclamation Day happened, she's released into Appalachia. So she's unique, and actually Lilith's name is not an accident. Lilith is the name of, quote unquote, the first woman that was, kind of from mythology.
Yep.
And that's really where she came from. So in my mind, FEV, that's what FEV was supposed to do. So if you look at some of the later versions of other advanced FEV, like what Frank Horrigan was, which was the Enclave, they're basically super monster that they created. Lilith was actually a better version of him. So like, she's basically Frank Horrigan on the inside, whereas he's Frank Horrigan on the outside.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, FEV is it is interesting because it does, like I said, it does kind of flow throughout not only all the Fallout stories, but it also speaks to what kind of scientific research was acceptable in the Fallout universe, which was anything and everything that you could throw up against the wall. That's what the government was asking people to do. And there was no compunction about it. I mean, they did it, they did it just to do it. And it creates some actually pretty sad stories, because if you look at Graham, for instance, there are hints in the game that Graham was in Huntersville, and that's where he came from. But he wasn't actually from Huntersville. My theory is actually he was a traveling salesman, and he was infected while he traveled through the town. And that little part of his brain that was all about trade and actually selling to his customers, was what survived his exposure to FEV. And it could be that he didn't get a full dose. So maybe that's why Graham is Graham.
He didn't have prolonged exposure.
Right. And
Well,
Gail,
he was only in town for so long.
yeah. And
yeah, but eventually they stopped letting people come in and leave Huntersville. So that had to have been really early on.
Really early on, though they did actually have super mutants actually under or actually inside West Tech that were being stored in those cylinders.
Yeah.
And actually it was the Enclave who let them all out. So the reason why super mutants are actually kind of running around all of Appalachia is because President Eckhart decided that releasing the super mutants from West Tech would raise the DEFCON status, so he would get access to the missile silos. So again, it's kind of this, interconnected story, and a lot of it unfortunately falls at the feet of the Enclave, that they caused this, they did this, and this is why we're suffering today.
Well, they did.
Always blame the Enclave here.
You always blame the government, and the Enclave is the government. So, but I mean,
Plus,
they
they did do it.
They did do all these things,
But still, blame the Enclave
happily.
Happily.
I will. I'm sitting here to take it. That's what I'm here for.
I mean, there's like 3 Enclave people on this podcast. It's fine.
I am an Enclave guy. I love the Enclave. I love the villainy behind the Enclave as a whole, like how it was plotted out from a Bethesda and a lore standpoint. It's just there, really. It's there. It's like your punching bag, your scapegoat. If something bad happens, you always blame the Enclave, which I find interesting from a story standpoint, because sometimes it's not, but like 95% of the time it is.
They're the government.
Yeah. Well, and that's it. That's actually
the government.
it's actually a way to kind of get back at who caused the war in the first place, because they do represent kind of that version of the old world, because that's what they want to recreate.
Right.
The other really interesting story about FEV in general is that it inadvertently also led to the creation of the Brotherhood of Steel, which most people may not realize.
That's true.
Yep, because that's where Maxon actually found all those people there, and he flipped out at that point. What are you doing to all my soldiers and all these other people? This isn't right. So that's
So he executed. So he was at Mariposa. He executed all of the scientists and tried to bury all of the evidence. So he actually collapsed all the tunnels and everything. And then it wasn't until later that the master actually fell into one of the vats. So, that created him. But then the Enclave was, they were excavating Mariposa, and they found all those samples. And then that's how they got involved with it. But it was a general, if you look at it, it's really like almost the general evolutionary virus or evolutionary process that created most of the monsters that we find in the wasteland. Because you had the super mutants, the centaurs, the mutant hounds, like I said, the snallygasters, the grafted monsters, the behemoths. And that's actually something that I actually had a lot of fun with. I love the concept of the behemoth, because it's just, the super mutants are bad enough.
Are mole miners product of the FEV?
They are not.
I think that was a separate thing.
Okay.
It was more like a grafting thing.
Yeah, I was just curious, because I was like, I didn't remember there being a connection, so I was like, huh?
No, I don't think there. No, there isn't. It's just they lived underground forever, and then they got too accustomed to being underground and wearing the masks all the time.
Yeah, I suspect that that ultrasite contamination had something to do with it as well. With them,
I believe the same thing also.
Yeah.
So I've been going through lore a lot
My
recently.
eyes keep watering today.
Mhm.
I got watery eyeballs.
Um,
I'm
yeah.
crying. I can't stand it. The FEV virus has got me
Just-
so sad.
Such a sad story.
Well, actually, and then the other one. So talking about kind of so if we think about the super mutants that are the ones that we are able to interact with. So in Fallout 76, we have Graham, which is the first one that we found, but then there's also Gale, who who is
there's
like
Gale.
the adopted mother of Rara.
Girl.
And you can actually it hasn't been confirmed, but I believe you can actually find Gale's story in a terminal in Huntersville. I think she was one of there's a mother there who her son gets infected first, and they come and they take him away.
Yeah.
And then she gets infected. And then there's another terminal entry in West Tech that I think talks about this same woman. And so I think that's the story of Gale, is that you had a woman who lost her child to FEV. She ends up escaping. She adopts Rara. And the one thing that she remembers, and if you again kind of think about why these super mutants are more human, is that they had an emotional attachment to something. Graham had an emotional attachment to his job because he was probably a single traveling salesman. That was his life. That's what he did. Gale, on the other hand, she's a mom. She loves her kid, and she doesn't have that anymore. So boom, now you have this ability, not ability, but you have this part of that humanity that remains inside them.
Able to pull that piece out of them. So I wonder if we could find that connection in other super mutants, if we could draw them back, maybe.
That's a really good question.
If you knew, like if we could identify
them,
knew
something about who their
learn about their life, right? You'd have to learn about their life, find out who they are, and then see if you can't find a way to communicate with them and draw that bond back out, whatever that is, to see if you can
stupid human
bring them back. I'm
only want to
strongest
smash
super
and
mutant.
crush things.
Well, it's probably easier. That would probably be easier to do with West Coast super mutants, only because they are smarter. There's probably more humanity left in them to begin with. Plus, you run into
dude.
Well, they can be reasoned with too,
right?
So. if they're more intelligent, it's probably easier to reason with them and find out what you need to know.
Spicoli super mutant. He remembers that was his pizza, man.
But
sorry, I had to play.
But super mutants are also technically, I mean, at least as far as the game is concerned, immortal. They don't age,
right?
Because
you don't reproduce.
No, but from what I've read, though, that's a bone of contention. People are not entirely convinced that super mutants are sterile. Because FEV actually has different effects on different parts of the body. It may be possible to actually have a strain that would create fertile super mutants.
Now,
where
is there
you could
actually female super mutant?
Not attack their.
Gale's a female, right? But they're kind of asexual product, right?
Well,
yes,
they are, but again, you can make the argument that they're asexual because it's a video game. You can't actually,
Yeah.
So, they
did differentiate a couple. I mean, you've got Gale, you've got the ones in New Vegas, the mamas. And...
Yeah, was it Granny who was the old one that you run into? I'm trying to remember the name of that particular one.
Didn't you just play New Vegas, Jaxus? You would know.
I didn't play the whole thing. So
and they're Tabitha and
yeah, Tabitha. That's who I was thinking
forget
of.
The other one. I should know this. I have the models.
I don't remember.
I have the models. But
when you get to but then when you get to Fallout 4, you've also got Strong, and I think Strong. I've never been able to figure him out. Like I don't know. Like I know why he was convinced that he was looking for the milk of human kindness.
Right.
But he doesn't have the same kind of backstory that you find with some of the other ones. Like I couldn't tell you where Strong came from.
Like what he did before that.
Right. Because there doesn't seem to be much in the way of connection other than the fact that he really liked this radio guy, and the radio guy was able to convince him that humans aren't that bad and maybe we shouldn't kill and eat them.
Right. That he could learn from that. So makes you wonder if others could learn, as well. Like if we could recondition them.
Maybe his emotional attachment was based on the fact that he had an emotional connection with the radio guy.
Radio.
Yeah.
Or theater.
Or maybe it was a radio thing. Maybe music in itself is what kind of made him rattle loose a little bit and was like, drew him towards the radio guy because he was a radio person at some point. We just don't know that because we don't know his backstory.
Right.
That could be.
I like the idea of more humanity in the super mutants. I don't like them necessarily as just being like
mindless, dumb.
Yeah.
Moron.
Mm-hmm.
Kill human. Human stupid.
I mean, they have some. They have some great lines, though. I have to go through the audio files, and some of these conversations that they have are actually pretty damn funny. I mean, the conversation where they're talking about the floaters and ooh, he like you, and and that kind of stuff. It's just really fun. And then there's one in Fallout 4. There's a great line where one of the super mutants is talking about he wants to be in charge and. Oh, I'm the best super mutant. I'm smarter than all of you guys. I should be the one in charge. And the other super mutant going, yeah, did somebody hit you on the head? Kind of thing. And it's just, and that's just really, really funny.
You bumped your head this morning. Yeah. You're not so smart.
If you walk around their camps and stuff in 76, you can hear there's always that one who's like, I'm the strongest super mutant. And it's like, okay.
I like hearing
you guys just fight to the death
as you're
and we'll
walking through, you'll hear them bantering back and forth over like little stupid things. That's not yours. No, that's mine.
Right.
Why'd you grab that?
Yeah, they did that a lot.
I like how they actually put that in there throughout the games. It's like kind of little nuggets, just like when you have the two Mr. Handies talking,
the arguing robots.
Nowhere.
Yeah. The questions.
Well, here's a question for you guys. Would you want to? Well, first of all, it's a two-part question. One is, should super mutants be playable characters in, say, Fallout 5?
Yes.
And if so, what would be the trade-off? Like if you were going to design that character archetype, what would be the benefits? What would be the deficits, I guess? And well, I mean, yeah, I guess maybe that's just the question there. Curious.
First thing that pops to mind, I mean, obviously, let's see.
They'd be ostracized everywhere they went.
Yeah, there would have to be like a social impact. So, there might be most settlements that are human or ghoul based that you just can't walk into, or maybe ghouls are fine with it. Who knows? But like, you can't just walk into Diamond City, but you can walk into maybe like a super mutant stronghold and everything's fine. As far as character builds go, I mean, the tabletop role-playing game restricts your intelligence and your charisma. Like, you can't have as high of a statistic, but you can go above the cap with strength and endurance. So, I mean, that's a decent trade-off. Maybe its own unique perk tree as well might be a decent thing to include for that. I definitely role-play as it. It sounds like fun. Having the dumb option in every dialogue would be great.
Right. I was gonna say their agility is probably not as great because
maybe
being
that
big and
can be one of
bulky.
those ones that are like a little wiggly, right? Like you're role playing as a super agile super mutant. I could see that. That's fun. That's passable.
No, that's not passable. That's not even at all.
Well, I did actually see it was a conceptual line of pictures of what of mutations would be. So like a person that was just beginning to turn into a super mutant and different degrees of that. And I believe that was proposed as like something potentially that a character that you as a player could get into and do that. See, I actually take issue with the limiting of intelligence though, because we do have very smart super mutants in various games. So I think if you have high strength, high endurance, very low charisma, low agility, and maybe even low luck, I would actually even limit the weapons that they could carry. Like I would say no pistols.
Oh yeah.
Because they can't handle them, right?
The hand's too big. But maybe no penalty for heavy weapons. So they could, carry around their minigun. And then conversely, actually for a human, I would say, don't let humans carry heavy weapons outside of power armor. I don't understand why they let us do that, but that's just me.
Because apparently bulk up. It's all that carrying your pit boy around. It like really bulks you up.
Oh, that's what it is. It's my pit boy.
It's my pit boy. It's like been bulked up my arm for so long. I can now carry a minigun around and just
That's
you
For
know,
those
like
listening at
physicality,
home, several members of the show made obscene gestures with their hands.
did not. That was not
Not.
obscene.
It was breakdancing.
It was like looking at my watch, which is AKA my Pit Boy.
I wasn't talking about you, Don.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, I would love the option to play as a super mutant. And yeah, like you said, there's some that just make sense. No pistols, but not having any restrictions with heavy weapons. That totally
sure.
tracks. But
I
that'd be
agree.
so
The whole
good.
not having miniguns without having body armor. I mean,
Yeah,
without the
because
power armor, you shouldn't be able to
doesn't
lift
make
that.
Yeah,
Not
and
Arnold.
I
Arnold
don't
can
use
lift everything.
heavy weapons in my game. I guess because it doesn't make sense to me that I can carry that stuff around, but I have them in my backpack, but I don't usually use them unless
All I need is my fixer. I'm cool.
exactly my fixers. And I don't know,
I don't know,
lately
man.
I've been
Heavy
really
weapons
jamming on
are
my
fun.
handmade.
I did a heavy weapons only run in Fallout 4, and that was one of my favorite files ever.
Now in Fallout 4, yeah, I did. I played railgun in Fallout 4. That was fun. I had a really broken railgun. It was great.
Although in 76, the weapon I use the most is probably the minigun, the one that shoots fire, that slowly shoots. The doof, 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 doof.
Oh yeah,
big one.
Oh,
I
the
use that one.
The one
what's
that
the
makes
Gatling
the-
gun?
Yeah, I
the
use
one
that.
that you keep hearing
a
after it
lot.
fires.
Yeah.
Because it screws up the
That's worth having a few things invested for. I'll say that. And if it was a super mutant, I wouldn't have to worry about it.
But yeah, I think it could be fun to play as a super mutant build, because I think I would prefer that versus running around in power armor all the time, because power armor is too bulky for me, and I don't like going chunk 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 when I run around and making the earth shake.
I hate the fact that I constantly have to come up with a stupid battery to put in the thing.
Yeah,
Drives me-
that too. Because even though I have like the battery saver perk, the things like whatever that noise is it makes when you have to change your battery.
So, folks, real quick, we're going to take a real quick break. We'll be right back after this message, and we're going to get right back in the story. Okay, cool.
Ever wanted to be a content creator but had no clue where to begin? Come join me as I sit down with content creators that have already faced the challenges you're up against, as they discuss the tips and tricks that help them be successful. Here on The Content Creator's Guide, available wherever podcasts can be found.
All right, everybody, welcome back. I hope you enjoyed our little message there. We're going to get right back into the story. We're talking today about super mutants with one and only Lawrence from the Modus Files. Yeah, and stuff. So, Sassy, when she's done giggling down there, she's going to go ahead and get us right back into things, because she knows what's going on and I have no clue.
I have a loose idea.
I have many loose ideas. It's just none of them
many loose
attached
ideas.
somehow.
Yeah, sometimes they stick.
They just
So no, I really like that idea that you had, Lawrence. So tell us why you delved into the whole next gen super mutant for your podcast.
Yeah. So again, it actually came down to one question that I had to answer for myself, which was, why are there scorched mutant hounds? Because supposedly FEV prevents you from getting any other viruses. That was one of the after effects of it, because super mutants can't get diseases, right?
Right.
But you have scorched mutant hounds and you have scorched behemoths. And I was like, wow, that's really interesting. I need to find out more about FEV. And as I was doing my research and the game continued, then we were actually with the New Brotherhood quest line, there was a new breed of super mutants that we end up facing, ones that are actually really fast. They are smarter. They end up attacking the Brotherhood of Steel at Atlas Observatory. And they were created by this Dr. Blackburn, who was trying to perfect FEV in a way that actually made people better. And I looked at all of that and I said, well, this is an interesting story, but I don't think this is the way that it should be. So I came up with the idea that someone actually wanted to perfect super mutants. So they didn't want super mutants that were dumb. They wanted super mutants that were very, very intelligent, that could actually plan, that could actually set ambushes, that would actually be a true threat. Because in the game, they aren't organized. There is a hierarchy, but they're basically a bunch of bands of super mutants. So imagine, if you will, an army of walking tanks that are smarter than you, faster than you, stronger than you, and want to eat you. And in the post-apocalyptic wasteland, that is an army that cannot be stopped. And in thinking about the true threat, what would be something that someone could use that would cause people to really be afraid? And this is, of course, after we had wiped out all the Scorched, so there had to be something else. And this idea that Dr. Blackburn existed, well, I was like, well, Dr. Blackburn exists. He's out there somewhere. I can use him. And suddenly the characters in our podcast are faced with something that they just assumed super mutants were stupid, that they were isolated, that they didn't have to worry about them as long as they stayed away from them. And instead, now you have this tsunami of this huge threat that has washed over the region. And that is really what I thought would make a very compelling story. This is going to be explored very heavily in our next season, in season 3. I've specifically not mentioned some things that are incredible spoilers for what's going to happen, because what I just told you is merely step 1. Because there's one very glaring question when it comes to super mutants that still needed to be answered. And that answer, then the question really is, and I'll say this and I won't go any further then, is it, well, you created an army of super mutants that are smarter, faster, and stronger than you. How do you keep them from eating you too? So if you're the people creating that army, what would you have to do to control them?
Mother duck syndrome.
Yeah.
That's what they see Doc Blackburn. They're like, "Mommy,
micro explosives in the brain span."
Well, he changed himself, didn't he? Right before you can catch him.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what he was doing. I do always pick up his. I did that mission 3 times, and I love picking up his glasses because that's like the only thing.
Say that, you know, is how do super mutants eat Twinkies without crushing them?
Well, because he's so desperate to prove that he was right about his strain of FEV, and they had forced him into a corner, and they had him, and they were just like, "You're not gonna do this," and he was like, "I have one last chance on myself," and he does it. And then there he is. So, I mean, I guess, yeah, you have to wonder, like, those other scientists, that whether you chose to kill them or not, depending on which way you went on your Brotherhood quest, because one character did, one character didn't. So, you know, you go to the Atlas and they're still there. Would you stop? And then, so you've got these scientists there, and you're just like, well, so what are they going to be up to? You know, they say they're going to walk the straight and narrow, but what are they going to do? This is what their career was. So what else are they going to be doing? And why not have them continue on that type of research, at least I would think if you were trying to be the good guys, that you would have them continue on the research on, like, how to reverse it. So you can maybe reclaim all these people in the wasteland or whatever. But they're still going to be doing some kind of research in that capacity, I would think, with FEV.
Well, so in Fallout 4, Virgil turns himself into a super mutant to escape. And then he does turn himself back. A lot of people think, oh, well, he found the cure to being a super mutant. And he actually didn't. He actually created a new strain of FEV that evolved him back to a person. So he still wasn't perfect. I mean, in fact, he grew, the joke was he grew his hair back because he was bald before. And now suddenly he has hair, but he also was like very muscular. He looked like a big dude. But that's the problem with FEV, is that there is no way to actually turn it backwards. It's if you're going to do it, you're literally just going to be like, okay, now I'm going to take the human version of FEV and see what happens.
Yeah.
You know, but again, I mean, this kind of comes back to this idea of the super mutants themselves, which is they can be an incredible force for good because they can potentially still have humanity. And just because they look the way that they are, just like ghouls, you know, people shoot ghouls on sight. Well, why? They're nothing but, you know, disfigured humans. Same thing with super mutants. But then you go to the, you know, then you turn it around and you're like, well, wait a second. If you actually made super mutants the true threat, if they made them the end game, make it in a way that's really going to scare people, because at the end of the day, I don't think they're not necessarily scary so much as
not from a distance. Yeah,
not from a distance. I mean, you know, you don't want to get too close to them because they will, you know, they'll beat you with their
pounding.
You know, that old thing.
And that can hurt.
Yeah, but you know, but if you think about it too, I mean, look at the super mutants. They They do have pets. They have floaters. They have mutant hounds.
Mhm.
Oh, the one I was forgetting, the super mutant in the Fallout 4 DLC. Why can't I think of the name of it? The island one.
Far Harbor.
Far Harbor.
Far
I'm trying to think of
Harbor.
Harbor.
who's
Yeah,
the
the
super
guy-
mutant there?
Yeah, the guy who was raising, or the super mutant that
Oh,
was
the guy
raising
with
dogs.
the dogs.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that. That was I
forgot about
love
him.
that character. That was a
Yeah.
great character.
Yeah.
And I think it's those little things that bring a measure of, and I'll say it, humanity to these games, because you
Right.
run into characters that you wouldn't expect that are different, but are actually better than most of the people that you actually run into in
Right.
Fallout.
They look like monsters, but they're not. And like you said, they're better than you're probably going to run into like X number of
You guys are
raiders that
talking about
look like
Erickson.
you,
Erickson,
but
yeah.
don't act like you.
I believe you can buy a dog from him, right?
You can.
get
Yeah, I bought several because all my camps had dogs.
oh,
Had dogs all over. It was great.
yeah. I'm trying to think if there was any other. So there's there was actually a couple of mysteries in Fallout 2 that involve FEV that are kind of related to the super mutants. The first animals that they mutated were raccoons, and they escaped. So I think everybody's been waiting for giant mutated raccoons to show up in Fallout. Yeah.
That's what we
Imagine
need.
that.
Mutated
But
trash pandas.
Back at Black Isle Studios or whatever, they're like, we can't do it. That's too much power.
Now I understand where
Give
that
it to
joke
him.
comes from. Everybody's talking about the trash pandas in Fallout. I'm like, I don't understand what they're getting at.
No, they've already got the masks, so they're probably going to be ninjas.
There you go. Maybe they're out there. We just can't see them.
Teenage mutant ninja raccoons.
And of
Oh,
course,
dear Lord.
you would have to meet one that could talk, and his name would have to be Rocket. So, or they would
Exactly.
actually call it, or because that's copyrighted,
totally
they probably
want
call
Rocket
him Missile.
because I love Rocket. He's
It
like,
would
go
have
get
to
me
be
these
Missile.
things and get that guy's leg. Why do you need that?
Oh, I'll get that arm.
What was the look on his face? Yeah, that was a
Just
good
look.
part. That was good.
Oh my god. No, the guy in Nuka World in the zoo place, I can't think of the Safari Kingdom or whatever, wasn't he fiddling around with FEV and making something in the basement?
yeah, that's right. He was doing
What
the
was that?
he had the
Alligators or something.
Yeah, the cloning facility. He was using Deathclaw DNA. He crossed Deathclaw DNA with the
Gator claws.
with the gator claws.
With
That's
the
what he was
gators, yeah.
creating.
I
And
didn't know if
actually,
that had anything to do with FEV, but I guess
Mildly
it would if he
terrifying.
was using Deathclaw.
yeah,
You're talking about the Safari Adventure Quest.
Right.
yeah, I got to get
I
back.
just
Once
remember fighting that guy in the basement and all those stupid
Yeah.
gator claws.
well, when the next gen version of Fallout 4 comes out, I am definitely playing that again. I
Oh
miss that
yeah,
game.
absolutely.
Is that a thing?
Of course, I have to play the
Is
heck
that
out
a
of
thing?
Starfield
Yeah.
first. So
Yeah,
Well, that's more likely to come out, but while we're all still
I
alive.
have to melt my brain on that game.
yeah, that's gonna be the only thing I play for a year.
Oh goody.
It'd be great.
well, and I'm curious to see what kind of, because I'm sure they're going to have some kind of nasty virus thing and alien creatures that we're going to have to face off
Bet
with.
they'd
So it's
have
going to be
to.
an entirely new thing for us to experience. Which is
I
gonna
hope
be
gonna
there's
be some
one
evil
super mutant on
facility.
one planet somewhere in that game,
The
I hope
planet
they
of
have
the
a planet of
mutants.
super mutants.
Yeah,
and it's Utopia. That's
Like-
actually the perfect planet.
it probably is. Like everyone lives in harmony, and it's great. There's no strife. No, but there's
That's
got to
funny.
be some crazy person who's fiddling around with alien DNA and trying to make alien people crossovers, and there you go. We've
Well,
just solved the plot of Starfield.
Yeah.
Figured it out.
Yeah. Well, I mean, thinking about and again, kind of going back to, obviously they've expanded the universe with the role-playing games and things like that. So, I mean, I think that there's a lot of fertile ground for including stories about super mutants. I think that from a perspective of a player, we should consider them to be more than just walking tanks that like to try to eat us.
Mhm.
I mean, I would love to see more interactable super mutant characters. I think that we don't see them nearly enough
Yeah.
in the games.
Yeah, I would like to have some more. I mean, we have some good ghoul characters, and they keep adding more. even if they're just background characters that don't say anything, they're still around. So it would be nice to see more, you know, I'm not going to kill you super mutants walking around.
They'd have to set it in a place where the lore allowed for more intelligent ones. Because, I mean, like, obviously we see examples of them, but I think the statistics of, like, how many out of 100 super mutants are intelligent, they have to kind of keep that kind of consistent. I mean, they don't have to. It's a video game. They can do what they want.
Yeah,
but I mean, we
get
a companion in each game, don't we? That's a super mutant or a nightkin. And then we run into at least one or two throughout the games. But I mean, you're right. It's something I want to see more of. Yeah,
because we have our super mutant who is our light companion from the scoreboard couple.
Oh yeah, that's right. I completely forgot about him. Yeah,
I haven't used him. I haven't used him, and I know he's there. Whatever his name is, I see him at some people's camp, Maul or something like that.
Maul, yeah.
I see him at some people's camps.
Claws.
But I don't think they like are that intelligent. And I wouldn't think they'd have to be like any more intelligent than Graham is. I mean, he doesn't seem like he's crazy smart. He knows what's up, and he likes to throw a party.
Yeah.
Well, that makes me wonder though, because you got like moderately smart super mutants, but then you've got Death Claws or Nightkin that seem to be very calculative and intelligent.
Yeah.
They're not just kind of smart. They're like really
different
smart.
strain. Like
so it's like, what makes them so much different than the super mutant strains?
Well, I think it's a lot. I mean, a lot of it is just the genetic manipulation. It's if you're going specifically for one thing. I mean, I would say that like what they did to the Death Claws was like using a scalpel. They took something that they already created and then they really went in there and was focusing on intelligence. Whereas creating a super mutant is like hitting DNA with a sledgehammer. You don't necessarily know what you're going to get. And I did that on purpose because I was like, yeah, super mutant sledgehammer.
Only certain genotypes get
to like Gallagher with
retain their, watches. It's all the redheads are the only ones that get to be smart super mutants afterwards.
But that would be something to look at. Like if you were taking everybody's DNA apart and find out that on this section of this DNA, they lack like this thing. And that means that their intelligence is not going to be retained once they're exposed to FEV, whereas other pieces of DNA may have that, so therefore their intelligence remains intact.
Oh yeah, redheads.
That's what
well, it could also be too. I mean, again, it's actually, and it is actually internally consistent in the game because different people can turn into ghouls. So that like people that ghoulify did it because they had certain DNA that like that was what made them survive. Yeah. So could be same thing for super mutants. Now the other thing too,
it could also be the same thing that keeps them from going feral.
Right.
It's like there are people that changed with radiation rather than die, but then there are some of those people that advanced onto completely losing their minds and became just creatures and not people.
So that's actually a really good question because there were people who purposely turned themselves into ghouls.
Yep.
But how did they know to do that?
That is a great question because the one I'm thinking of is the guy that goes against Nick's nemesis in
the gangster guy. Yeah.
The gangster, and he that was his plan. He built the bunker, he told the girl, this is what we're gonna do, we're gonna survive this, and he exposed himself to radiation. But like you said, how did he know that he would live through that and that he would change into a ghoul so he could live forever?
Unless the government was experimenting on people and they knew that was going to happen.
Right. They already knew.
And so,
which, I wouldn't put it past them,
Well,
I would imagine they probably were doing experiments. They knew that somebody was going to drop a nuke eventually because that's where it was heading, with all the tension with the Chinese. It was probably like another Cold War, but way more brittle. And they probably were experimenting with radiation to see what happens if we do get nuked? How many people can survive X radiation level, and start seeing what effects radiation have on people. Just probably start throwing people in radiation chambers without their knowledge or something.
What's the worst that could happen?
Sounds like a Vault-Tec experiment to me.
Absolutely. Well, they did do that in one vault where they didn't seal the door.
Yeah.
And everybody got ghoulified.
Yeah, they all turned into ghouls, which actually, if Vault-Tec knew that was going to happen, they
Right.
would put those specific people with that trait in that vault, and it would confirm if they all turned into ghouls. Hey, that's what
Exactly.
happens.
Exactly. So they would have
Wow.
to know their DNA. That's crazy.
That's
But-
really crazy.
Makes
Yeah.
you wonder if like how much did Bethesda or whoever, in the beginning think all this out, or just how many of them got lucky and that made sense. Like, I don't know.
It's probably
I
just
said-
one developer in the studio made a whoopsie, and they're like, now we got to think of a lore reason for why this works.
But it works. Well, like Todd says, it just works.
It just works.
Weird.
Well, I mean, it actually, I think it is, and especially the fact that it's actually been through 3 different developers. It was Interplay, Bethesda, Obsidian,
yeah.
and then they've managed to, but they've still managed to keep it fairly consistent. I mean, I can,
Mhm.
of course, the lore is all over the place, and there's a lot I think that is up for interpretation. But at the end of the day, I think we as players can fill in most of the gaps ourselves.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
hard
Make
to
something
do.
up.
I mean,
It's
yeah,
ours.
we do.
We
We
do what we
do.
want.
That's what we tend to do. We just start filling in gaps
what makes
to
it
make
fun.
things gel.
It's that whole. I mean, come on, Lawrence. It's the whole reason why you do what you do, right? 'Cause
Right.
you
That's true.
got into
Yeah,
a game
I mean,
and you went, okay,
But but that's
this
a
goes
good
this
thing.
way, that goes that way. I'm going to go this way and see what happens.
Right. See, and that's a good thing. If they don't explain everything perfectly, or we wouldn't have the ability to be creative and go that way instead of this way.
Yeah.
To take it on like he has and say, oh, we're going to advance this
Mhm.
and make these better super mutants to be the
I-
next big challenge.
Yeah, I also love the fact that I actually managed to turn Graham into a real character.
I love that.
You
That
know,
was so good.
he's just this picture of Charlie just sitting at the side eating the grass. Well,
Yeah.
Graham is there with his big tenderizer, just swacking away and
Right.
doing all this
The
stuff.
whole
I mean,
time they're like, oh, wow, you're such a hero. He's like, I just want to trade with humans. Like,
I
the
just
only
like to
reason I'm
trade
doing
stuff.
this.
I like to trade thingies. I got
Right.
stuff.
Like, I want
got
to
money.
trade with humans. Can't trade when human dead. It's like,
oh,
Not
yeah.
wrong. It's not wrong.
makes sense. Makes sense.
Or you can
Yeah.
trade really well when human dead.
Right.
Well, I'll tell you, putting those last 2 episodes that I did. I mean, first of all, I did not expect them both to be 2 hours long each. That was quite the experience. I don't know if I can do that next season. That's a lot, but just finding all of the super mutant sounds that I needed, plus getting somebody to actually do some of their own sounds, and just painting this picture of like 20 super mutant behemoths suddenly breaking out of the tree line and just
Right.
running towards you. I mean, I don't care who you are, whether you're the Enclave, the Brotherhood of Steel, or whatever. You're going to look at that, and the first thing you're going to think of is, "Wow, I'm about to die. This is going to be really, really, really
Yeah.
bad."
This is a poop my pants situation for
Exactly.
sure.
Like, doesn't matter how many pairs of drawers you brought.
Oh, all gone.
Yeah,
Wait, so you had to get people to do the voices for super mutants?
yeah.
did.
Well,
You got, hey, let's hear your best mutant impression right now. I kind of want to hear that.
no, I didn't do it. I got somebody
Oh
else to
no,
do
I
it.
know. I still want to hear you do it.
It's your show. You got to do it.
Well, there you go. That's one of them.
That was actually really
It
good.
was one.
Yeah. It's the
You can't ask
Uh,
Tangerita to do it. He does it all the time.
I just scream. I
He
just,
just kind of. "Ah,
does.
Yeah, what's the other one? Time of human over. Now is age of super mutant.
I like that. That was good.
That's good.
Yeah.
And
But,
I was hoping you would botch it and I could make fun of you, but you did a good job. How dare you? How dare
You
you?
would
good sir.
not.
Yeah.
It's funny.
But actually, finding somebody who can do that means that I can actually write lines that are not in the game. Because before I
Mhm.
was limited to what the super mutants would say, which was
Yeah.
again
You
fairly
just say
limited.
what's on your mind and be
Yeah.
stupid about it.
You just have to have a funny voice and have a funny cadence, is all, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Kinda.
Sound
Yeah.
kind of growly.
Stupid human. Dumb.
You'll have to
Yeah.
tap into Eric next time because he's
Yeah,
pretty good at that.
No.
Well, I
No?
gotta, yeah, I do have to find a lot more people who can do super mutants. Plus, I have to also, since I've solved the Sunny the robot situation, I'm gonna have somebody continue to do Sunny for me. So
Oh,
You had a
cool.
Sunny the robot situation?
yeah, because there's 3 Sunnies,
Yeah.
and so each Sunny is like competing with the other one to
Yeah.
determine who the real Sunny is. and I solved that particular problem.
Oh, cool. Okay.
So I won't spoil it on how exactly that happened, but
I mean,
nobody
that was
beats
one way to
Rose,
do
though.
it.
Rose is the ultimate.
Think any of the voice actors from the games who do Super Mutants would be interested?
Oh, I have to find out who they are. You know, I've always wanted to get at least just one guy or one girl or whomever.
Then I'll never
to
get another role again. Thanks, Ginger.
I'm just saying. Ray Chase.
But at
Dave
the same
Tenoa.
time, yeah, but now with some of them, I can't, like, when I'm in the game, I can't actually listen to Modus anymore, because for me it's always the Modus that I have in the podcast.
Brad. Yeah.
So it's Brad. Yeah.
It's Brad. It's not
And actually, I
else.
will say Jaxus has done a wonderful job as Frederick Rivers. Like we barely hear him in the game. And he has really brought him to life in a way that has just been absolutely fantastic.
Yeah,
So
we
I
only
think
hear
that
him on holotapes, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we never know what happens to him. So that's my justification for why he's still alive, because you never hear that he
Good.
died.
That was really
I
good.
lived through something. Hey,
I
all
liked
my
it.
characters usually end
But
up
you're
dying.
not dead yet.
I
Well, I mean,
lived for 10 minutes. I remember
Yeah,
being a
R.I.P.
biker
Jaxus.
once, and I don't even remember the name of the biker. I just remember I got killed like 3
Really
minutes.
fast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like about 3 minutes.
That's okay. I have so many more characters to kill. It's like not even funny.
See, I
It's
got
like-
lots of other roles I can do. Another 3 minutes here,
Exactly.
3 minutes there. It's the easiest job in the world, man.
Yeah, I think
Been killed.
I think the record is I've got one guy who's he's been killed 15 times.
Is that
Oh,
what's
wow.
his name? Austin or
Well, that's Chris, actually,
Oh.
from One Wall Comedy. Yeah, he does a lot of the
15
miscellaneous
times.
voices, and like almost everybody he does gets killed. So he's really happy that he's like got characters that haven't died yet.
Well, that
And I
was
say
me.
just-
I was trying to get that one character that didn't die, and then he's like, "Oh, I think I got something for you." And then that's how I ended up being Frederick, is just trying it out. But I sat there forever trying to get his voice to where it was right. You know, I had to get that kind of
Yeah.
old Southern dude thing going, but
yeah,
it
I
had
don't
to
know
be
anything
kind of
about
a
that.
Southern
being
guy with a
Meg.
little bit of cashish. You know, he had to be a little bougie a little bit in there too.
Oh,
Same
that
time,
actually
it was
that
like-
actually reminds me. I'm actually writing a scene now for next season that's got Meg in it. So I will
Yeah,
be
Meg's coming
I will be
back.
talking to you again. Yeah, well, I have to. I mean, it's been weird though. I mean, it's one of the things I've learned in writing is that you can't write about everything. So you know, the Fallout 76 is a huge game with lots of different characters. Sometimes you have to kind of ignore various kind of side things because it just gets in the way. Though I'm having to add the Brotherhood of Steel, I don't have a choice. So I'm that's actually the scene I'm working on literally as we speak. Like it's up in front of me right now.
That's
but I've
easier
got
because
to,
you already know who does those voices.
Yeah, that's true.
Yay.
Well, so that's the problem. Like most people don't know, the Paladin Romani in Brad's podcast
Mhm.
is Colonel Valeria from mine.
Oh, I know.
So,
I know. And you can tell if you listen real hard. I mean, it's the same
Yeah.
way with Vitriol. I mean, I hear her everywhere. You know, it's like I know that's her, but you know, she tries to sound different every time. But
There's
But I know.
3 of them like staple female characters that kind of bounce back and forth between the Modus Files and Once Upon a
Mhm.
Wasteland. They're kind of like synonymous with each other.
I
And,
agree.
and you're like sitting in one, you're listening for a while. You're like, I know who that is.
yeah.
yeah.
Well, it's
I
like
know
I
who
can
that
always
is.
tell
That-
it's
that sounds
you
the same.
too. I
Yeah.
can
That
always
sounds
tell
the
your
same.
parts when they come in.
Me?
Yeah.
Oh,
Like, there was one I didn't even know you were in, but I was like, God, that sounds like Jaxus. And I'm like, yeah, that's Jaxus. I'm like, it's like
There's
it was,
always a
I
little.
think it
There's
was-
a little me in every one
I
of them.
think it
so-
was when you played the guy in the vault with the what's her name? And you got killed.
Oh, Lilith. Oh yeah, I think
Not-
you were
yeah,
you
it
were
was
one
with-
of the,
No, I wasn't in that. Not that part anyway. I wasn't in the vault. But yeah, you were going on that. You had like broken into that vault and were going in and you got killed.
Oh, are you talking
was
about
one of your
those
many
Phoenix?
deaths. I don't remember the name.
Oh.
I just didn't know you were in
Oh.
that one yet. And then I heard it I was listening and I was like, oh, I think that's Jaxus. Like, yeah, that's definitely Jaxus.
That was Team Cryptid thing or something. I think
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they
maybe.
Yeah. Was it the ice vault or I don't remember now.
trying to remember. I'm trying to remember myself. I've kind of lost
Oh,
track.
it's the one with the death room thing. You know, it was that room with all the. God, I can't remember that exactly, but I
I
remember.
just remember there was like three of you, I think.
Mhm.
With I thought it was with the chick from Atlas, who name gone.
Now,
I thought it was
sure-
that one. It might have
Okay.
been Once Upon a Wasteland. Was it Once Upon a Wasteland?
It might have been the Cage
And you broke into that
Chronicles
vault,
from
and then one by
True
one,
Vault
y'all got
Escapades you're
killed.
thinking of too, though.
One by one, y'all got killed.
I think you might be thinking of the True Vault Escapades with the Cage
Mm.
Chronicles.
Maybe.
Maybe.
I don't remember though.
Maybe. Now that I think about it, it may have been that. But you were with some girl. Was she the one who led that? No matter.
Possibly. I don't
But I just remember hearing, and I was like, I know that.
I played a lot of roles, man. They might have been there for 3 minutes, but I was there a lot.
Mine are always background. Nobody knows anything about me.
Like I played the doctor in Once Upon a Wasteland. That's one where I ended up with, the main characters. That was when they were what was that machine that messed with your head, changed your
Oh,
head?
the lounge thing, right? That
The memory lounge.
The memory lounge. That's what that was.
Yeah, I was one of the scientists that worked on the memory lounge that was perfecting it, and then
for
at
the sleep thing.
in there, I
That's right.
kind of helped with the change in the climax of the thing. Yeah, I had a role to play there.
Cool.
I've had
No,
important parts. They just last for a very short time, and then I die.
Well, like I said, you have nothing to worry. Well, okay, I can't say that completely. You're pretty set. You're pretty set for a while.
At least for a while, anyway.
Texas, the character we love to kill off.
Well, eventually,
I've
Lilith's
never been
kill
killed.
something.
I'm just so transient.
And I've never voice acted.
I play waitresses and random people and vendors.
Gotta find something that fits you right, Maverick.
That is true. And I have this. And I wear this headset, and I have no good Wi-Fi, so it's all. Yeah.
You got to find something that fits you as a person. Like that's the main thing about that I found with voice acting is like I've tried to just on a whim, I'll go through and I'll be like, I'll try this role and that role and this role and this role and this role. And then I'll get in there and start reading and I go, I don't care enough about this.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't feel it. So I just can't do it.
So
as much as I think it's a good role and actually sometimes it's a paying role, and I'm like looking at it. And then when I read it, I'm like, I don't feel it. And then I'll listen to other people and I'm like, I hear a lot of them just sound like they're reading off a piece of paper 9 times out of 10. That's what it is. It's just like blah, 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 blah.
It's like, can you not put a little bit of personality into it?
Kind of be a little bit excited or actually play, like you're there and it's happening to you. And then there's those times where they're just like, I'll be doing it and I'll be like, that almost sounds like I'm reading off of the paper. And it's just because I don't feel it. I don't feel connected with the character. I don't feel connected with the story. I have to feel a connection with both for me to be able to be a legitimate actor in that situation.
No
matter
I feel
how short and stupid the role is.
I had a lot of fun today yelling at my computer because my character was very angry, shouty, large and in charge. And it was fun. So if you ever need a shouty character, I can do that. People doubted me and I was like, you don't know me very well. Everybody was like, I don't see you doing something like that.
I wouldn't even be doing this if it wasn't for Lawrence. So he's one that talked me into it.
Well, I will say I've worked with people all over the spectrum, people that are professional voice actors versus people that are just doing it for the first time. And you actually hit the nail on the head. It actually comes down to emotion, because you could be really good at doing voices, but if you can't connect to the character, it still sounds like crap. I mean, at the end of the day, it's just somebody reading notes off of a page. But if you do care about the character and you can emote, it actually sounds great. And in a lot of cases, me personally, I'm not looking for perfect. I'm looking for somebody that cares about the character, and that's also a community. It's also a community thing too. I love getting members of the community involved. I mean, the guy that played Tyson, I would say he's not the greatest voice actor in the world, but darn if he didn't nail Tyson and loved that character to death. And when I told him I was going to have to kill him, I expected him to be like upset. He was like, no, that's exactly how I want to die. Like, do it. Do it.
It was the perfect ending for him. It was. That
Yeah.
was, I mean, just the way you really, and like you really brought his character home in the last couple episodes, and that was really good.
Half the time,
Yeah.
I don't even know what's going on. You're like, Beckett dies. Oh, okay.
Okay, cool.
Well, it's like I try not. So there's been times when I've read the whole script and then, listened later. And then there's times where I just only read what pertains to me because I don't really want to know what else is going on except for that conversation.
I only read what's at the beginning before what my lines are.
Yeah.
Like a few
Just
chapters
that
before
set.
that, so that I have
Right.
an idea of leading up to what
Yep.
it is, so that I can convey the right emotion. But I
Yep.
don't read what's afterwards because now, mind you, I skim and look for my name to see where the end of my
Well,
lines
yeah,
are.
you have to.
But after that, I won't read past that because I still want to go and listen to the show, and I still want that same sensation of, whoa,
Yeah,
wow.
same.
I want that. I want that same emotion. I want to feel the same emotion as I want to convey to the listener and myself
Mhm.
with my characters.
Yeah.
That I want to get
Yeah.
that from the story myself. That's why I always kind of keep from reading too much or too, one way or the other. That way, when I do listen to Lawrence's stories, I stay as interested in, because if I know everything, it will eventually it'll make you jaded to it. You won't,
Find that.
you know it's coming. So it's like,
Well, kind of, I guess, but
Yeah.
it's different because like I've noticed in myself that if I'm going to be in a script more than just a few lines, I'll read the whole thing, just to get a gist of the episode. And then if I'm just doing a few lines, like for Neon, I just did, those 3 lines or whatever. I just read the conversation to make sure that it was kind of going to fit in and gel there. But it doesn't bother me to go back and listen to it later because it still sounds different to me because you have everyone's intonations, how they did it, not how you read it. And you have everybody's different take on everything. And then just how that all comes together is like way different than the way I read it.
Yeah, just trying to
So
keep
it's
my
still a
element of
surprise for
surprise.
me.
We've drifted way off from Super Mutants, though.
No.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Well, I will say again, I think that it's, kind of to bring it all kind of back. FEV has been a staple of all of the Fallout stories. It's been involved in all of them. Super Mutants have pretty much been involved in all of them. You can see different takes on the Super Mutants. We've seen different varieties from the ones that are berserkers all the way down to the ones who are childlike in the way that they interact with us because they are kind of like Strong. To me, Strong is like a child. Like
Yeah.
he's big and whatever, but he's just looking for one particular thing. And there's a lot that can be mined there. And they do exist as characters that we can care about. But we think, I think collectively we think they should be doing a lot more with them. I think that there's more in the future that Bethesda should actually evolve player characters to super mutants. I think we should actually find super mutant settlements that we can interact with. I think all of
I'm
that would be
surprised that we
absolutely
don't.
fantastic.
Yeah.
I think they should come up with like a storyline where there's actually some sort of an antidote that's created so that they can start turning super mutants back, and then having super mutants that have conflicts with wanting to turn back or not to wanting to turn back, and
Right.
creating a storyline dynamic around that kind of situation to where there's they get to a certain point where they get their intelligence, and then they're like, well, I still want to be super strong and I still want this and that, and they're like conflicted, and I think there should be a dynamic of that somewhere along the line, and possibly the dynamic between being able to reproduce and create families, and maybe the super mutant should become a race of its own that's a legitimate race, and how they should have their own society or something of that nature, and
Mhm.
to create some sort of a storyline dynamic revolving around that. I think that would be something you could travel down.
I agree. I mean, I'm wondering, again, you kind of made the joke, Don, about there being Starfield may be the only game that we're still alive for. Fallout 5 might be a few years away, but I'm really
Mhm.
hoping that when Fallout 5 comes out, and we know that they're working on it, that it does actually have a much larger story. I'm actually still interested in them seeing if they could do something like that and actually still maintain some of the multiplayer component, only because I never thought I'd love a multiplayer game, and
Yeah.
Fallout 76 has kind of taught me to love multiplayer. But at
Yeah.
the same time, I won't say no to a single player Fallout.
You know what I would love to see that would
That's true.
chap some asses is them to make a Fallout New Vegas 2 and make it an online
Multiplayer.
game.
That would be crazy.
I think the community might
fun,
eat
though.
itself at that point. That might be
It would be
a
a total meltdown. I could
They
just see
would.
it.
They would. For
It
sure.
would be gross.
I've seen gaming communities go crazy over stuff like that.
Oh, but
Usually in tabletop, but
I
whenever
have
you change
too.
it,
they'll
edition,
remember
like,
me too. They'll be like, "You came up with this idea. It's your fault."
It's your fault. No, I think it sounds good. I mean, and you said the exact same way that I felt. I mean, I've never played a multiplayer game outside of Lego Universe with my kid when that existed.
I actually legitimately think that would not be a bad idea to do something like that, because it would actually create a situation where
even if it's just a couple people, like you have like a little squad of 4 people that you want to play with, and that was it. Like
you could create it
tons of
almost like
people.
a co-op-y kind of thing where it's only so many.
that.
But it would create more of a community, even more than there already is for that whole New Vegas line
Right.
of fans that are out there, and there's a lot of them. We know that for sure.
Oh gosh,
'cause
yeah.
they're very
loud and proud.
They're loud and proud, but to create an online element that doesn't break the game, because that's what they're worried about in a lot of cases, and then make sure that the lore is actually adhered to. If you take that time and you actually pay attention to the lore and you paid attention to not breaking the game, you could create an online element where it's not a bunch of silliness like it is in Fallout 76 kind of went overboard with the whole, silliness part, which is a lot of the argument of the New Vegas people is that they want to keep that seriousness that you get from New Vegas. And if you can keep
And yet
that
everybody
serious
played with
nature,
Wild Wastelander
what's that?
or whatever that was called. Wild
Yeah.
Wasteland or something like that.
Yeah.
in New
yeah,
Vegas.
Wild Wasteland, yeah. where
Everybody
everything-
played with
everything went
that. And yet they want it to be serious.
Well, I mean, I can't speak for that whole community. Come on,
Yeah.
but what I'm saying is I've heard argument that like us 76ers, that play the pink helmets and the kitty cat paws, and
It's the overwatching of
Yeah.
Fallout is what
Yeah.
people call it. Yeah.
yeah, it's a little bit
Trying to keep
much
it
for some people. So
Pure.
create a venue for them, something that
Yeah.
they can
Oh,
bite
Fortnite.
into.
That's what I was thinking
Yeah.
of. Fortnite.
That's
Fortnite,
what I was thinking. It was Fortnite,
Fortnite,
how
yeah.
they turn everything into.
Overwatch, Fortnite, same diff.
But well, they called Fallout 4 Sims, so whatever. But the thing about 76 is it wasn't just a multiplayer game, but it gave birth to so many creative elements for people. Whether it was machinima or podcasts or blogs or whatever.
Theater, the Fallout, the
theater,
Wasteland Theater Company.
exactly.
I mean, come on.
So many different Fight Club, all of that. Different things that people are
Don't
doing.
talk about Fight
We
Club.
don't talk about Fight Club.
You never talk about Fight Club. If you talk about Fight Club, you're out of Fight Club.
Litterbox fights. But it just, that's the thing that I think was truly surprising to me, and that's what made me really fall in love with 76 so much. Because I quit the game once before for a while because back in the day when things weren't really happening, and it was like, I don't know if I really like this. There's no NPCs and there's all these random people that I don't know. But that was early days. Like now things are so much better where you can talk to people and you can get to know people and you can play with people
It's like any game. You're going to get burned out playing the same thing all the time. That's why you have to have variety.
Right.
And
But
then you
that's
can
why
come back
people
to it.
started making things up, which
Yeah.
was,
Yeah.
but we were able to,
Very true. Very true.
yeah, it's pretty cool.
Awesome. I love talking to you guys. I don't get enough of this like adult nerd conversation. I need more
Oh my
of this.
gosh. Well,
Oh,
you are
yeah,
welcome
I
back
hear you.
whenever you want. Whenever
Now,
you need a dose
I'll
of
say, I don't think there'd be a person here that have a problem with you here every week.
No, not at all.
Yep. Open door policy here.
Exactly. Whenever you want to hop on, we're here Thursday nights.
Lawrence is
Lawrence's
like, I was just
lore
trying to be
corner.
really, I was just trying to be polite, but all right.
Hey, we've had discussions about bringing on more hosts so that we
Mhm.
could free up other individuals who, their life gets
Wanna
crazy.
rotate in.
Gingerino just had a kid, Romer and Maverick, they're truck drivers, so at any moment they can just have a narcoleptic fit and then they're gone. So, things happen. So we were like, maybe we should bring in some new blood. And then there's the new blood versus old blood, bringing in people well, who cares either way? I mean, as long as we are having a good time and a good conversation.
That's what I worry about. Yeah, just make sure we have the right people, the right mix of people can talk.
Got to be like-minded. That's
Yes.
all. Okay. Yeah.
So
But
yeah,
we love nerding it up. So, what do you got coming up? Got anything you want to promote? Want to plug something?
Yeah, just real quick. So we, first of all, I'll say we did just release the last episode of our second season several weeks ago. So I would encourage everyone to check us out on Spotify and iTunes. Look up the Modus Files. Again, very epic episodes that we had. Upcoming, we are actually going to be part of the new Starfield podcast anthology. So we have an episode coming out probably in a couple of months called Neon. A story of the seedy underbelly of the City of Lights, which is, again, called Neon. So that will be coming out. And then our bridge episode between season 2 and season 3 is going to be a special bedtime episode, a bedtime stories episode that tells the story of Trader Red, who is a character that we introduced this past season. So that will be coming out. And then season 3, which will be actually our final season of the Modus Files, is going to be coming out this fall, but it will be probably 20 to 30 episodes, so we will be doing that for quite some time. So please stay tuned. You can check us out on Twitter at Modus Files. We're on Blue Sky, same thing, the Modus Files podcast, Instagram, Threads. All you have to do is just look up Modus Files and you will find us, and we would love to have you as part of our community.
Awesome.
Good stuff. Need to get me a Blue Sky invite.
If I get one, if I get one, I'll send it to you.
I don't
Perfect.
even know what Blue
Great.
Sky is.
It's another platform that people are trying because of the new X platform.
Oh,
Kind of swirling the drain.
is that the whole like Twitter like war stuff?
Yes.
I try not to
Yes.
We're all trying to find a
We're
new
not
home.
changing anything.
I just wait until
Here.
somebody goes, "Hey, go here." Okay.
Well,
We're not
you know,
changing
if
because I have
things ever dry up
access.
on Twitter where there's like nobody there and there's no connection or anything, then we will.
If you go screaming in the canyon with nobody in it, it's not going to
Yeah.
be really useful.
I mean, you got to go where the people are.
Yeah.
But right now, people are still sticking it out on Twitter. It's just, I know a lot of people are also exploring.
Yeah,
New
I've
sites.
explored around. Just
Yeah.
Kenneth popped up with something. And I was like jumping over there checking it out, and it's like a Discord. It's an alternative to Discord because he got ripped off by Discord.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, like big time.
Oh, is it like Gilded or whatever?
I think
Is it
that's what it
Gilded?
was, something like
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Yeah,
I think I set
yeah.
up an account, but I
Someone
haven't done anything with it.
Yeah, someone tried to one of my role playing groups. Yeah, I'm in role playing. Woo! Tried to move over, but then it just died instantly. So we went back to Discord because we didn't know what was up with it.
So do we know what we're doing next week, guys? We already figured that
No.
out. No. Oh, cool.
I have
We'll
no
figure
plans.
that. Well, when we figure that out, we'll let y'all know. All right, folks. We're going to go ahead and hop off
Stay
here.
tuned.
Hope you had a great night. I hope you enjoyed our talk about super mutants. Thank you, Lawrence, for being on the show. And everybody, say good night.
Good night,
Good
everybody.
night.
This podcast is part of the Robots Radio Rocket Club, a program designed to help all podcasts reach their full potential. For information about joining the Robots Radio Rocket Club, check out robotsradio.net.